My name is Flora Stewart, and I am the woman who transformed a working-class Chicago upbringing into a name spoken with reverence among the city's elite. From nothing, I built Stewart Events, turning my gift for orchestrating perfection into a company that curates Chicago's most dazzling galas, weddings, and corporate gatherings. But this story isn't about professional triumph. Not the kind you'd expect. It's about the night I walked away from a family determined to break me, only to realize they had handed me the key to my freedom. It began in London, at a dinner meant to honor my mother-in-law's 60th birthday, where I found myself staring at a table that had no place for me. Growing up on Chicago's South Side, I learned early that nothing came without a fight. My mother, a nurse who worked endless double shifts just to keep food on the table, taught me resilience. She'd return home bone-tired, her hands raw from sanitizing wipes, yet she would still sit with me over a cup of instant coffee, painting visions of the life I could one day create. "You're sharp, Flora," she would say, her eyes weary but unyielding. "Don't let anyone make you feel small." Those words became my compass. Through high school, through business school on scholarships, and through the sleepless nights when I launched Stewart Events. I started small: birthday parties, neighborhood fundraisers, but my obsession with detail, my refusal to accept impossible, drew the right kind of attention. Before long, I was orchestrating society weddings and corporate retreats, leaving behind invisible fingerprints on every flawless moment. That's how I met the man who would become my husband. It was at a charity gala I had designed for a children's hospital, the kind of evening where Chicago's wealthiest mingled under crystal chandeliers, disguising their status games as philanthropy. He stood out, not just for the precision of his tailored suit or the careless fall of dark hair across his forehead, but for the curiosity in his green eyes as he approached me. "You're the one who made this happen?" he asked, gesturing at the ballroom, its silk-draped tables shimmering beneath fairy lights like a galaxy. "My mother has been looking for someone to plan her foundation's events. You're it. Next event." He was a Warwick, part of a dynasty whose real estate empire had sculpted Chicago's skyline for generations. They were old money, the kind that never needed to flaunt itself because it was already woven into the city's history. Think steel and railroads once. Now, skyscrapers and glass-wrapped condos. He carried the easy charm of someone who had never worried about a bill, but there was a sincerity in the way he leaned in and listened when I spoke about my work. One job for his mother, Harlow, led to another, and before long, I was the Warwick family's go-to planner. Harlow was immaculate, her smile sharp as a blade, her style a masterclass in understatement, the kind of woman who wore Chanel without ever displaying a logo. Yet her approval always came with an edge. "You've done well for yourself, Flora," she'd remark, her tone dripping with the suggestion that my success was a novelty, like a child praised for coloring inside the lines. I let the barbs roll off me because he seemed different. He'd drop by my cramped little office with coffee in hand, asking not just about the next Warwick Gala, but about my day, my ideas, my dreams. Our romance blossomed in those late-night conversations, mine about building an empire of my own, his about carving a path that wasn't entirely dictated by the Warwick name. But the warning signs were there, even if I didn't want to see them. The way Harlow's gaze lingered on me too long, dissecting. The way his sister Lauren would nudge conversations toward family traditions I would never belong to. The whispers at dinners, reminding me of my Southside beginnings. Still, when he proposed, beneath a canopy of stars I had designed for someone else's engagement party, I said yes. I believed love could bridge the chasm between my world and his. Our wedding became the event of the season. Naturally, I planned it myself. I couldn't entrust something so personal to another planner. Harlow had her opinions. Too modern, too bold. But I held my ground where it mattered. He played the mediator. though I noticed he never truly stood against his mother. After the wedding, the Warwicks' subtle slights hardened into routine. They'd hire steward events for their galas, then question my decisions or quietly take credit for my ideas. At family dinners, my words were brushed aside. "Flora's so creative," Harlow would coo, patting my hand as though I were some charming pet project. "It's like having our own little planner in the family." Later, he'd shrug, dismissing it with, "That's just how she is. Don't take it personally." But it was personal. It always was. When the chance came to plan Harlow's 60th birthday in London, I thought it would be my crowning moment. A week-long celebration in one of the world's most sophisticated cities, culminating in a dinner at a Michelin-starred restaurant overlooking the Thames. It was the kind of project that could elevate my reputation beyond Chicago, placing Stewart events firmly on the global stage. I threw myself into it, calling in every favor, every contact: London florists, private tour guides, vineyard owners. But as the planning intensified, I began to notice fractures in the family's polished veneer. Payments lagged. Vendors called about missing deposits. When I pressed him, he brushed it away as accounting issues. Then, one morning, while he was in the shower, his phone lit up. A message from Rachel, his college girlfriend, the one Harlow had always adored. "Can't wait to see you in London. Have you told her yet?" My heart froze. My hand moved before my mind caught up. I opened the thread. Months of messages unfurled, plans, whispered promises, and a truth that hit like a blade: a baby due in 4 months. I didn't confront him. Not yet. Instead, I took screenshots, forwarded them to myself, and erased the evidence from his phone. Then I packed my bags, put on a practiced smile, and boarded the flight to London with him and his family. My mind was a storm, but my face was a mask. They thought they could choreograph my downfall, write me out of their story. They didn't know I was already scripting my own ending. London was supposed to be my triumph, the city where I would prove I belonged, not just to him, but to the Warwicks and the rarefied world they inhabited. I had spent months crafting every moment of Harlow's birthday: private tours of Buckingham Palace, a vineyard lunch in Kent, a yacht gliding along the Thames, and finally, a dinner framed by floor-to-ceiling windows and the glittering London skyline. But as our plane descended into Heathrow, the golden afternoon light draping the city, I carried a secret far heavier than my luggage: his betrayal, Rachel's pregnancy, and a family plotting my exile. The Warwick entourage, Harlow and her husband Richard, his sister Lauren with her husband Greg, his brother Daniel with his wife Sophie, and a chorus of aunts and uncles, descended from the plane into a convoy of sleek black Bentleys I had arranged. I'd anticipated at least a flicker of approval, but Harlow's first words landed like a dart. "I'd expected the Savoy's cars, Flora," she said, her tone clipped as her eyes swept over the vehicles. "These seem a bit standard." I swallowed my retort. "The Savoy had a scheduling conflict," I explained evenly. "These are from Elite Transport, used by half the diplomats in London." But she was already turning away, leaning into Richard, whispering in that closed, conspiratorial way that always left me on the outside. At the Langham, the 5-star hotel I'd chosen for its old-world elegance, I had orchestrated every detail. Suites overlooking Regent Street, welcome baskets brimming with Fortnum and Mason indulgences, and personalized itineraries for each guest. Champagne flowed in the private lounge as bellhops whisked away their luggage. Yet Harlow barely glanced at her schedule before flicking it aside. "We'll figure it out as we go," she said, dismissing months of work with a wave. "The family knows London well." His phone buzzed as we entered our suite, a sprawling space with a balcony overlooking the city. He stepped outside, his voice low, murmuring that it was work. I didn't ask. I already knew it was Rachel. The first night's welcome dinner at a Mayfair bistro set the tone for the days ahead. I had curated a flawless evening, candlelit tables, a menu of British classics, the kind of warmth that made strangers feel like old friends. But when we arrived, the seating had shifted. Somehow, I was placed at the edge of the table, separated from him by Lauren and an aunt. The family traded stories of past London trips, laughter spilling like champagne, their memories threaded together without me. When I tried to join in, suggesting a visit to the Tate Modern, Lauren cut me off mid-sentence. "Oh, we're doing a family shopping day in Knightsbridge tomorrow instead of your museum tour," Lauren announced smoothly. "You'd find it dull, Flora. Why don't you check on the birthday plans? That's your thing." The pattern only deepened as the trip unfolded. I would wake to find him gone, a note on the nightstand about breakfast with his father. The family slipped away on impromptu outings, tea at Claridge's, strolls through Hyde Park, always forgetting to include me. Conversations dissolved into whispers the moment I entered the hotel lobby. Dinner plans shifted to accommodate old friends who eyed me with polite curiosity, as if I were some puzzle they had no desire to solve. Each slight stung, but the real wound came on the third morning. He had left his briefcase unlatched in his rush to meet Daniel. Inside, I found a folder, divorce papers dated months earlier, granting me only a fraction of what I had earned. Worse, there was a typed script detailing how he would present our mutual split during Harlow's birthday dinner, framing it as my decision, a graceful exit designed to erase me with minimal scandal. My hands trembled as I photographed every page. This wasn't just betrayal, it was a calculated execution, staged in public, meant to strip me of my place in their world. Harlow's birthday wasn't a celebration, it was my erasure. But instead of breaking, something inside me ignited. I had spent years proving myself, building Stewart events from nothing. I would not let the Warwicks author my ending, so I played the part. I confirmed floral arrangements, reviewed menu cards, met discreetly with the restaurant manager, all while gathering ammunition. In his email, bank statements revealed massive withdrawals funneled into offshore accounts. And then I found it. A note from Harlow to him, cold and precise. "Once Flora is out, Rachel will fit right back in." The truth crystallized. The Warwicks were teetering, their finances hollow, their empire bleeding behind the facade. They were hiding assets, propping up appearances, and I was the scapegoat chosen to shield their fall. I didn't confront him. Instead, I smiled through dinners, nodded politely at Harlow's suggestions, and let them believe I was blissfully unaware. Each night, alone in our suite, I assembled my arsenal. Screenshots, documents, emails. The birthday dinner wouldn't just be their triumph, it would be their undoing. I wasn't planning an event anymore. I was planning my escape. The morning of Harlow's 60th birthday dawned bright and sharp over London, the kind of day that makes the city hum with possibility. I slipped out of bed before he stirred, my mind already in motion. This was the culmination of months of effort. A private tour of the National Gallery, a vineyard lunch in Kent, and the grand finale, a dinner at the river's edge with London's skyline glittering beyond the windows. As the planner, I had to arrive early. But first, I needed confirmation of what I already knew, their betrayal. In the hotel's business center, while printing the final vendor confirmations, I caught Harlow's voice bleeding through the thin wall by the concierge desk. 12 seats, not 13. She snapped into the phone. "The seating chart I sent is final." "No, my daughter-in-law won't be staying. A family matter." My blood ran cold. The missing seat wasn't an oversight. It was the centerpiece of their performance, a carefully staged humiliation designed to frame my exit as voluntary. I gathered my papers, my hands steady despite the storm raging inside. Back in our suite, I checked my phone. Every piece of evidence was secure: the scripted divorce announcement, the offshore transfers, the emails detailing their asset concealment. I had spent days documenting their deceit, slipping between roles as event planner and investigator. The truth was stark. The Warwick's empire was hollowing from within. Failed developments, maxed out loans, properties mortgaged to the brink. They had even siphoned off my company's credit line to cover their deposits, assuming I'd never notice. But I had, and I was ready. I kept my professional mask firmly in place, meeting with florists to confirm Harlow's beloved lilies, checking the restaurant's 7-course menu, making sure the 3-tiered cake stood flawless. When anyone remarked on my quiet intensity, I brushed it off as last-minute details. In truth, I was fortifying my arsenal. The family spent the day on their carefully curated outings, once again forgetting to include me. He left early with his father, leaving only a note about business. I used the hours wisely, calling vendors to confirm cancellation policies, each one under contracts bearing my company's name. That detail gave me power, the power to unravel every stitch of their grand performance if I chose. Back at the hotel, I dressed with deliberate precision. The sapphire blue gown I had chosen for the evening was sleek, luminous, a subtle rebellion against the Warwick's muted palette of understated elegance. My reflection in the mirror stared back with eyes sharpened by resolve. 5 years of trying to mold myself into their world had drained me, but it had also tempered me. They thought they could erase me with whispers and paperwork. What they hadn't accounted for was the woman who had built an empire out of nothing. I arrived at the river's edge an hour before the guests, overseeing the final touches. Hand-calligraphed place cards gleamed against crystal centerpieces. The Thames shimmered under the city lights, a living backdrop for the drama to come. Clara, the restaurant's manager and a trusted contact, walked the floor beside me. "Perfect, Miss Stewart," she said, with a satisfied nod. I smiled, knowing this was the last event I would ever plan for the Warwicks. Back at the hotel, I joined the family in the lobby. Harlow, draped in cream Dior with diamonds glinting at her ears, leaned in with a perfunctory air kiss. "You look nice, Flora," she said, her tone making it sound like a pleasant surprise rather than a compliment. His eyes lingered on me for a fleeting second, a flicker of something, guilt perhaps, before he looked away. The drive to the restaurant was filled with their chatter about the day's excursions, every one of which I had been excluded from. His hand rested on the small of my back as we entered the elevator to the rooftop restaurant, a gesture that once felt tender but now landed like a prop in their staged performance. The rooftop itself was breathtaking. Tables draped in white linen, candles glowing against the night air, the Thames glittering below like liquid glass. The family applauded as Harlow entered, their faces illuminated with smug self-satisfaction. I followed, my heels striking the polished floor in crisp defiance, and approached the round table set for 13. My heart sank, though I had already known. No place card, no chair, no trace of me. The staff, who had confirmed the seating with me only hours earlier, kept their eyes down. Harlow's voice sliced through the hum of conversation, dripping with mock concern. "Is something wrong, Flora?" Every head turned, amusement and pity painted across their expressions. I drew in a slow breath, my voice calm, deliberate. "There seems to be a mistake. My place is missing." He half rose from his seat, his expression carefully arranged into concern. "That's odd," he said, glancing at the table as though he hadn't known. Lauren tilted her head, her voice feather light. "Did we miscount?" Richard cleared his throat, muttering about a mix-up. Then he delivered his line, right on cue, with a chuckle that made my skin crawl. "Oops, guess we miscounted." The family's laughter followed, low and practiced, an inside joke sharpened to cut. And in that instant, I saw their plan in perfect clarity. A carefully staged humiliation meant to force me into walking away, protecting their image while discarding me like an afterthought. I stood there, the Thames glittering behind me, the Warwick family's laughter echoing in my ears. Oops! Guess we miscounted. The final straw, delivered with the casual cruelty of someone who believed the game was already won. Harlow's smile curved in quiet triumph. Richard's eyes flickered uneasily, while Lauren's smirk revealed her delight in the spectacle. The staff lingered at the edges, uncertain, and other diners glanced over, sensing the drama unfolding. This was their moment, their carefully choreographed dismissal of the wife who never belonged, but I refused to give them the performance they had scripted. I straightened my sapphire gown so it caught the candlelight, then let my gaze travel slowly, deliberately, across each face at the table. "Guess I'm not family," I said, my voice calm yet edged with steel, slicing cleanly through their laughter. The smiles faltered. His eyes widened, a flicker of uncertainty cracking his mask. Harlow's grip tightened on her wineglass, the crystal trembling just slightly in her hand. I didn't wait for their lines, their feigned concern, their rehearsed pity. "I'll see myself out," I added, turning on my heel. "Flora, don't be dramatic. We can fix this," he called after me, his words empty, mechanical, the voice of a man reading straight from their playbook. I didn't break stride. I simply nodded to Clara, the manager, who looked torn but remained silent, caught between her duty to me and the Warwick's influence. Outside, the cool London air hit my face like a tonic, steadying me. I crossed the street to a small cafe, its windows framing a perfect view of the river's edge rooftop. I ordered a black coffee, my hands no longer trembling, and drew out my phone. This was it. The moment I had prepared for since Rachel's text first lit up his screen. The Warwicks thought they had staged my humiliation, but in truth, they had handed me the spotlight. I opened my event management app, my fingers moving with the precision honed from years of orchestrating perfection. First, I emailed Clara, attaching proof of my authority as event coordinator and confirming the immediate reversal of all payments. Then came the calls. The Kent Vineyard, the private Westminster Abbey Guide, the Thames Yacht Captain, the Cotswolds Manor set to host the week's finale. One by one, I canceled every arrangement, redirecting each deposit back into the Stewart Events account. With every confirmation, I felt the weight lift. The vendors, accustomed to my professionalism, never questioned me. My company's credit had earned their trust, and now it bought my freedom. That's when his texts began flooding in. First annoyed, "Where are you?" Then sharper, "This isn't funny." And finally, frantic, "Flora, call me now." I ignored them all, sipping my coffee slowly, my gaze fixed on the restaurant across the river, where the Warwick's perfect evening was about to collapse. 25 minutes after I'd walked out, I sent Clara a single text. "Proceed." From my cafe seat across the river, I had the perfect vantage point. I watched as she approached the Warwick table, 2 staff members flanking her. She leaned toward Richard, showing him something on a tablet. His expression shifted, confusion, then alarm. The family's chatter died instantly, forks suspended midair. Harlow set her wine glass down with a sharp click, her spine rigid. He was staring at his phone now, no doubt reading my final message. "All deposits have been returned to Stewart Events. All arrangements have been cancelled. Your family's financial troubles are now public. Enjoy the view." Richard surged to his feet, his voice rising as he gestured angrily toward Clara. Harlow's hand flew to her diamond earrings, her face draining of color. Lauren bent toward Greg, whispering furiously, while Daniel scrolled his phone, his jaw tightening as the cancellation confirmations I'd forwarded lit up his screen. And him, once all-polished charm, sat frozen. The mask had slipped, replaced by the raw realization of what I had done, I slipped back into the restaurant through a side entrance and met Clara near the kitchen. Her voice was low, cautious. "Are you sure, Miss Stewart? This is unusual." I handed her an envelope, thick with the cancellation documents. "I'm certain, Clara. Thank you for your discretion." She nodded, her loyalty unwavering. Years of working together had built that trust, and tonight, it was the final piece of armor I needed. I slipped into a shadowed corner with a clear view of the table. The first course, the caviar Harlow had so imperiously demanded, sat half-eaten. Clara returned, this time addressing the entire family. The room stilled, other diners turning toward the spectacle. Richard fumbled for his wallet, then froze, shaking his head in disbelief. Harlow's voice rose, sharp but trembling. EMTT shoved back his chair, nearly toppling it, and stepped away, phone pressed to his ear. I answered, my tone even. "Flora, what the hell are you doing?" he hissed, panic cracking his usual polish. "Guess I'm not family," I said, echoing my earlier words. "So I'm not responsible for family celebrations." "You need to fix this," he snapped. "Do you know how humiliating this is?" "I know exactly how it feels, EMTT," I replied. "That's the point." I laid it out for him. The financial statements, the offshore accounts, the divorce script, Rachel's texts. His silence on the other end was a cavern. "You've ruined us," he finally whispered. "No," I said. "You did that yourselves." I ended the call and stepped forward. The family's eyes locked on me, their faces taut with fury and fear. Harlow's gaze burned like fire. "How dare you ruin my birthday?" she spat. I smiled, calm and unshaken. "I learned from you, Harlow. A public exit perfectly staged. I just rewrote the script." Richard surged to his feet, his face crimson. "You had no right." "Every right," I countered coolly. "Every contract was in my name. And I have proof of your hidden assets, your fraud. The IRS will love it." Nyeh. Their complexions blanched, the weight of the truth crashing down. I turned without hesitation, leaving them to choke on the wreckage of their own making. The Thames shimmered behind me, a river of light carrying me forward. A city that had witnessed my attempted fall was now bearing witness to my rise. The next morning, I boarded my first-class flight back to Chicago, a quiet indulgence paid entirely with points earned from years of Warwick events. The irony was not lost on me. Behind me, the Warwick family scrambled, their polished facades splintering. Through a contact at the Langham, I learned they had paid for the dinner with Harlow's heirloom bracelet as collateral, a desperate move until a wire transfer cleared. Word traveled quickly through London's hospitality circles. Vendors began demanding upfront payments, wary now of the Warwicks' unraveling fortune. My phone buzzed non-stop during my layover in Dublin. Richard, blustering with threats of lawsuits. Lauren, shrill with indignation, calling me a disgrace. Daniel, cold and curt, warning of consequences. Harlow's message cut the sharpest. "I always knew you didn't belong, this proves it." But EMTT's texts told the real story. Father's in the hospital, stress. Is this what you wanted? The board's pulling out, the hotel's demanding payment up front. And finally, a plea. "Flora, please, we need to talk. It's bigger than us now." I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded every file. Bank statements, offshore transfers, the divorce script, Rachel's texts, to my lawyer with instructions. Hold them in reserve, ready to surface if the Warwicks ever tried to drag me down. Back in Chicago, I walked out of our Gold Coast penthouse with only what was mine, my clothes, the jewelry I'd bought myself, and a few books I loved. The rest, wedding gifts, shared art, furniture chosen to impress rather than comfort, I left behind. I wanted no tether to their world. I settled into a small loft in Wicker Park, paid for entirely by Stewart Events profits. Exposed brick, Tall windows, the hum of the neighborhood below. It wasn't grand, but it was mine. For the first time in years, the space felt like freedom. The Chicago Tribune ran a small piece, Warwick Realty Faces Investor Scrutiny. It wasn't front-page news, but it rippled through the city's elite, just enough to rattle their gilded circle. A week later, EMTT appeared at my loft. He was unshaven, his usual polish stripped away. Without waiting for an invitation, he stepped inside. "You need to come back," he said. "This has gone too far." "This isn't a game, EMTT," I replied, folding my arms. "This is divorce." He sank onto my couch, burying his head in his hands. "The SEC is digging into Dad's accounts. Clients are pulling out. Mother canceled her foundation's gala." "Sounds like a Warwick problem," I said evenly. He tried to argue about shared debts, but I cut him off. "I have proof you hid assets to cheat me in the divorce. My lawyer says that protects me." His head lifted, eyes widening as the weight of defeat settled in. "I loved you, Flora," he murmured, voice raw. "In the beginning." "Not enough to choose me over your family," I countered, my tone sharp but calm. "Or Rachel." "When's the baby due?" He flinched, the truth breaking through. 4 months. I nodded, my heart steady, my mind clear. "Congratulations." He offered me a deal, money, an NDA, anything to keep the documents buried. But he still didn't understand. I didn't want their money. I wanted my life back. I wanted the truth acknowledged. "The documents stay with my lawyer," I said, holding the door open. "Don't drag me into your mess." He left, swallowed by the Chicago rain that fell hard against the pavement. In the weeks that followed, the Warwick empire unraveled. The Tribune ran a front-page exposé on their financial collapse. Harlow quietly stepped down from her charity boards. Rachel's pregnancy became society gossip after she was spotted with an engagement ring. Her timing exposing his infidelity in headlines the Warwicks couldn't spin away. Chicago's elite whispered, but their code of discretion had limits, and the Warwicks had crossed them. Meanwhile, Stewart events soared. Clients who once saw me as the help now recognized me for what I was, a woman of integrity, a planner who couldn't be bought. When Harlow made a desperate attempt to hire me for her next gala, I declined politely, citing a full schedule. The divorce finalized without fanfare. The Warwicks, too busy saving face, agreed to my terms. He and Rachel married soon after, their daughter born into the chaos. I sent no gift. Months later, I found myself on a Paris terrace, the Seine glinting below as I orchestrated a celebrity wedding. The city sparkled, alive, and for the first time in years, I felt something unburdened, unfiltered. Joy. The Warwicks had tried to make me small, to erase me from their story. Instead, they freed me to write my own. That missing chair in London wasn't my shame, it was my salvation. This is the conclusion of my story. May it remind you to stand tall, to guard your truth, and to never, ever let anyone dim your light.